the most important book in the history of European literature. Però prima in italiano, perché siamo in Italia. Benvenuti al lanciamento di un libro unico nella storia della letteratura, scritto per due scrittori con lingue madre differenti, Roberto Quaglia ed io. Roberto, ti ricordi quando concepimmo il primo racconto del nostro libro in Ungheria, in un hotel vuoto e misterioso, quando da fada fu in ritardo per la prima colazione, dunque di conseguenza parliamo di necrofilia virtuale. Puoi tradurre in inglese?
Yes, this all happened as Ian Watson did not know any Italian words except a few. Che lingua volete? C'è qualcuno che non capisce l'italiano? We should make kind of Esperanto so that actually most people will not understand all the talk.
I do not speak Italian, non posso parlare italiano, però faccio finta parlare italiano.
Anche io faccio finta da molto più tempo. Comunque è vero, abbiamo concepito questo libro
in inglese.
Yes, we conceived this book.
Per gli stranieri qui.
We have conceived this book in an empty hotel at the border between the Czech Republic and Hungary. We were in Hungary. The whole hotel was gigantic and completely empty except for us two and Darth Vader. Of course, it was not the real Darth Vader, but it was indeed the real Darth Vader in the sense of the actor who was behind the mask and that nobody saw with his real face except us.
It was a terrible experience.
Yes, and it was happening every morning because we were guests of the Hungarian Science Fiction Convention in Salgotarjan, which is the ugliest town of Hungary.
No, the second ugliest town in Hungary.
Only the second?
Yeah. There is a more ugly town in Hungary.
Why did they not do the convention there?
They were frightened. They would not stop at the red traffic lights when we went through it.
Actually, we were always going back to the hotel drunken, and I was driving, and they were stopping us, and we were afraid they would test our alcohol.
Well, this is because to honor us, they did not put us in Shalgatarian, the town, but in the empty hotel on the side of a mountain, very near to the Slovak border. So every night, Roberto would drive back in his big white Mercedes, and the guards would come out of the forest and would say, "What are you doing?" And then Roberto would speak by keeping his mouth shut so as not to allow the fumes of alcohol to escape. And he would say, "We are science fiction writers. We go to sleep in the forest up the hill."
When you were talking, I understood the gods. Then I realized you were speaking about the guards.
Gods.
But if there were the gods, I was thinking, yes, we were drinking really good stuff to see the gods talking to us. But actually, the guards were stopping us every night. And every night, we escaped without damage.
The hotel was very strange. In my room, there was a television set, but there was no plug, no press to put the electricity into the television. So it was a room which pretended to be a hotel room.
This was the beginning of all. An empty hotel between two countries in the forest with no guests except us and Darth Vader. a television which pretended to be a television because it couldn't possibly work there, and this started to trigger our fantasies. And then Darth Vader was late at breakfast.
Not my fantasies. Non mi piacerebbe fare sesso al cadavere di Darth Vader.
È così che è iniziato. This is how it all started.
Yes.
So we were waiting for Darth Vader and we started to talk about
Virtual necrophilia.
Because as you may know, I mean, the future of cemetery rituals will be virtual cemeteries because they are more convenient than the physical ones.
Then I said, let us write this story.
So actually, if you have a virtual cemetery, actually you can mourn your dead, your beloved dead, wherever in the world, because it's there. And actually, somebody dead is typically spiritual, so you don't really need the symbol of their body, which typically is a tomb. You need just a symbol of them, which can be on the screen of a computer, and wherever you are in the world, you can have the same feeling of pain that you need. So actually, this was the beginning. We started to mention that then they would start to blackmail you if you don't pay the rising fees for your virtual tomb.
Yes, then somebody decided to publish this story in America and in Italy too. So we thought, well, there must be a second story. And by coincidence, Roberto and I were in a car belonging to him, which was traveling from Budapest to Genova. So we started to talk about the penis of my beloved.
Which didn't belong actually to us, but this was the second story, which was then published in a Canadian
erotica magazine, and in fact became part of Best New Erotica last year, which is strange because not many people who seek for erotic excitement would necessarily become excited by this story.
I can hardly imagine actually somebody getting excited by that story at all. Since the main character is a penis.
The main character is a penis without a body. We will explain more about this after a while. So gradually, as we were compelled to meet in strange places such as Plovdiv and Bucharesti, more stories gathered themselves. We owe a great debt to our Hungarian friend Peter Michalewski, because we were trying to leave Bucharesti to travel to Plovdiv, when Peter came in and said, I will have a shower. We know that a doccia di Peter requires 1 hour. So instead we went to the kitchen and we created a story called The Compost of My Beloved.
The funny thing is that some of the stories which has been published in several magazines has all got controversial reviews, because nobody would say the stories are bad, but they would say they are very interesting but very offensive, and how could you...
Transgressivo.
They didn't say transgressive.
No, they didn't know the word.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, Roberto knows all of these words because he would write in Italian and then he would translate into English, creating wonderful new surrealistic English words which generate the most fantastic ideas.
This is the power of creative mistakes, actually. Mistakes is the really evolutive force of the universe, probably, since every emerging property could be defined in a way as a mistake of a previous harmony of laws.
Yeah, there is a lot of philosophy in our book. Do not only read it for the pornographic content. You will be very disappointed. Well, now this is the only book ever written, I think, by two Europeans with different mother tongues. So it should receive an important award from the European community. security, I think, a prize of at least 10 million euros, because nobody has done this before. After creating a complete book of such fictions, I was inspired when I came down the autostrada of Italia to realize that in this book, siamo sempre insieme. I should explain we are not homosexual. Non siamo omosessuali.
For this reason, we discussed for 20 minutes whether we should buy it or not.
It might give the wrong impression if we appear in public with this badge upon our heads.
Now we will be discriminated because we are not homosexual.
Probably. A lot of the book is about political correctness and different methods of violating political correctness. This is why, in fact, we have generated our advertising campaign also on the internet, because it is interesting to view the reactions of people in, for example, England or in advanced cultures such as Italy, when they see our propaganda campaign. In fact, our propaganda campaign is very decent and discreet. Now, interestingly, if she was holding a bottle of perfume, this would be, she would be too much dressed to appear in Vogue magazine. But because she is holding a book, people become very disturbed in their consciousness.
And they become disturbed, and however, they cannot turn their eyes away, because on the other side, words are written and you can read them. However, all the people look the publicity only from this side, so as to be disturbed. And wonder why.
We are investigating. This is a scientific experiment which we are carrying out here in Fiuggi with a sample of citizens of different countries of Europe, and then we will carry it out in England at the Easter Science Fiction Convention. This is a very important experiment on the perception of imagery. And we require also at least 10 million euros from the European community for investigating something which has not yet been investigated.
Well, we may continue to talk about the book for hours, but probably it should be better to
ask for questions.
To ask for questions is as different as they may be, completely unrelated to the book or to sex or to whatever, so that we can make the talk various instead of revealing all the secrets of this book.
D'accordo. Ci sono domande in italiano o inglese.
Philosophical questions or not philosophical.
Domande semanticas,
grammatical questions.
Grammaticals.
So, do you gentlemen make any use of machine translation, or is it all human done?
Oh, it is all human.
I'm not completely sure to be human, but in the case I am, it's all human actually, because the mistakes that machine create are not as creative as the one that our unconscious does, I suppose. However, this could be possible to make a Google translation of the Bangalore story.
No, because one of the stories is about how Google becomes a divinity. God Google.
All the secrets inside the book.
Well, yeah.
And let's hope that God Google didn't hear us.
Yes, another question.
So have you considered working in languages other than English and Italian, like languages you do not yourself speak?
That's a really good question, and actually I didn't think about that. But we should think about that in Romanian, for example.
Vorbești numai puțin românești. Numai puțin.
Eu, pentru asta acum trebuie să...
Să avem cedea și putere.
Absolut d'accord. We will do it in Romanian next time. If we go to the floor. That's a good issue, because actually by writing it in another language we can introduce more creative mistakes.
Yes. There are so many false friends between Spanish and Italian, Italian and Romanian, English and Italian, that we can write a book entitled False Friends, which by choosing the mistakes which people can make in normal speaking, will create an entirely alternative universe.
Also in Russia it would be interesting just for the lack of articles.
Yes,
so
yes.
that when it would be appear in English, it would be without articles. It should be probably more synthetic.
Are articles like underclothes or...
this is... we don't call them articles. What you said?
Oh, you mean like the?
Yeah, like the.
Yeah. No, we do not call underclothes articles. I am trying to lead you into temptation. Now, I have rescued Roberto from, for many years, signing his books with sympathy. Simpatico. However, in England, this only means, I am sorry your baby died. Or, I am sorry that you have cancer. So I took Roberto in England to a shop which sells cards, Cattolini, and put him in front of the section which says sympathy, simpatico. And there he saw the truth and how he has for years insulted the readers of his books.
All the readers of my books, actually, because this was my standard dedication to the people I wouldn't know. And actually, it was more than years, it was decades.
Decades, yeah. So now I write without sympathy.
I don't write senza simpatia, though.
Yeah, so this is the value of cross-cultural collaboration. We prevent ourselves from making the silly mistakes, but we enable ourselves to make the creative mistakes.
Well, actually, we do also the silly ones.
Well,
I
yes.
won't tell you. So the process of questions is very efficient. Next question.
Yes.
Somebody, yeah.
He looks like the same person.
No, he changed personality 3 times.
How much did we pay him? Remind me. Yeah, okay.
Forgive me for dominating the questions, but it's a keenly interesting.
No, we love that actually.
Do you have any methods for introducing mistakes deliberately? Like the surrealist correct methods, if you know those.
We use a lot of wine.
Yes.
This helps. But very much, really.
In Romania, we discovered a wine called Red Paradox. In a kind of cabinet with Roberto already wrote a book called Bread, Butter and Paradoxine. Pane, burro e paradoxina. So to find by accident a wine which encapsulates our vision of reality is very useful.
Yes, absolutely. And this wine really exists. I think this is probably the only wine in the world which is called Red Paradox. I mean, who is so nuts to call a wine paradox? This is must be either science fiction fan or someone who doesn't know what it means. Because it's in English and it's in Romanian.
Mr. Lally.
Yes, Ian, I have a question. Please ask Roberto why he shaved off all his beard last night.
No, he does not have a beard upon the top of his head.
I have one.
Lally, you must understand, this is not the beard. The beard is here.
down here.
Except when people are upside down.
Also, other hair is gone, but you won't see it.
Oh, no. Well, you can pay money to see it.
I already made money by selling my wig.
Oh.
This is important. You know, we need to know.
A pervert in the audience. Now, another question from Bruce, please.
It is in order to conform with the photograph up on the cover. So you are not confused and imagine that an imposter or clone of Quaglia is here.
Actually, it would have been too banal to have a different face rather than one on the cover. Because people could have thought I did it on purpose to confuse them. So I prefer to confuse them by not having a different face.
You have caused a lot of confusion. Yes.
I confused myself.
So yeah, there's one story I've read which is similar in genre, which one of the principal protagonists is a severed penis, and that's the Schrödinger trilogy by Robert Anton Wilson. I wondered if you'd ever come across it at all.
Well, I have, but I have amnesia, creative amnesia. I am able to forget any book which I read, but also any book which I write. This is a problem when people ask me about a book I wrote 20 years ago, because they think I will know what is in it. No, I use books and stories in order to store information, memories and emotion externally to my brain.
I agree.
I store some in Roberto. Or he stores some in me.
Nothing sexual.
No. Siamo sempre insieme. Però no, in un sentito sessuale.
Something sexual.
Mr. Lally.
My hair. Where is my hair?
Very good question.
My hair is
Will
going.
Roberto regrow his beard after the Eurocon?
I didn't understand the
Why
question.
did you grow your beard after the Eurocon? What does this mean? I can only...
We can see the future.
Look, I can only invoke an Irish proverb.
No, it's not an Irish problem.
Mr. Lally, are you interested why did Ian Watson cut his moustache some years ago?
Yes, your moustache
I was sure about that.
Yes.
Well, it is because the Spanish word for mustache is bigote, and the English word for a person who cannot think freely is bigot. So this means that people with mustaches are possibly in danger of bigotry, except those people in this room.
Thank you, Mr. Lally, for this very good question.
No, there was too much bread in my mustache.
So have you considered collaborating by means other than verbal means, like doing visual collages, films, music?
We often look into each other's eyes.
Sometimes through a bottle which enhances the view, because partially full, partially empty. Visual. Well, actually, I suppose that this also refers to what we see, except our reciprocal eyes. This means where we are. And since we have been meeting in many countries in Europe, we generate different stories, the visual environment has happened. For example, when we were in Spain, we have been to Baza, a town where the people are happy once a year to meet, all covered in oil, and to run after one man who is dressed in white, and they have to dirty him and beat him also.
This is not olive oil, it is dirty motor oil.
And this was very visual and actually led to one of our stories, which is the Cascamoras of my beloved Cascamoras.
Yes.
Cascamoras is this man which is in white, and in the past was probably even buggered if he was taken alive by the others.
Yes.
Now it's only symbolic, and this is for this reason this is also our story, which deals with also gay love and
Danish harems
in Morocco.
This is because Al-Qaeda will use nuclear weapons upon Denmark because of the cartoons of the Prophet. Therefore, there must be a new place for the Danish citizens. We decided Morocco is a suitable place for them to live.
In gay harems.
In gay harems. You will realize why those are gay harems after you read the book.
I makes a sense.
Oh, totally. Perhaps if we had visited other places, there would have been slightly other stories, slightly different. But I don't think so. I think that if we had been, for example, in Vatican City, we would nevertheless have written about gay Danish harems in Morocco.
I mean, once you hear about the gay Danish harem in Morocco, how can you think this does not exist?
That logic
People
is
agree.
irrefutable, I have to say.
Sorry?
I believe you. I mean, your logic is irrefutable.
Yeah.
Well, this is a beautiful logic.
They won't live upon large cruise ships, because after oil becomes impossible, what do you do with all these large cruise ships? You pull them into the desert of Morocco to be habitations for gay Danes.
That's obvious. Mr. Lally.
Yes, I was supplementary.
If you want to see my hair, you
I've got to think about
facial hair.
This is the reason. Ian, you've just acknowledged to this convention that you have trimmed your moustache for this convention. Are you going to allow it to grow out?
No.
No,
I have.
on from Roberto now.
No. For as long as Roberto has no moustache, I will have no moustache. Otherwise, how could we be
We bearded ones have got to keep together, you know.
That's obvious. Other questions to induce us in creative mistakes?
Yeah, now it is to your advantage to ask questions, because otherwise we might try to sell books to you.
Yes.
Before Sergei Lukyanenko occupies this room. Yes?
Okay, no, I've already bought the book, so there's no...
Oh, right, yeah, okay.
I'm sorry, it's not one of yours, it's just for Mr. Quaglia's book about on 9/11.
Oh, really?
And I'm having such a good time, I don't want to introduce such a grim a subject.
I find it's very funny, actually.
Well, 3,000 people might not agree with you, but never mind.
What? More people die every weekend.
Agreed. Anyway, not to rain on your parade. Is this... I've read the introduction.
This is the first edition, I think, I wrote.
I don't know.
The second is out now.
Possibly.
Mhm.
And I'm trying to figure out if this is meant seriously or not.
This is your problem. Because it's really definitely your problem. I cannot think for you, so usually suggest there is an invention called brain, which mankind developed in millions of years. And if I would tell you either it's for joke or it's for serious, this would not help you, because I could lie first. Second, I could be wrong. So I can only suggest brain, because it's very useless usually, because the brain produces a lot of uncreative mistakes, you know, and other shit. But, however, now and then by mistake and or poetry, brain can be slightly aesthetically useful. In this case, to understand if it was for joke or for true. But is there a difference?
Well, yes, I think there is. Perhaps it's...
I'm afraid there is not, but it's my opinion of today. Probably when I'm in a more grim mood, I may think like you.
Okay. Well, I'm not particularly great, but I'm enjoying myself. But anyway, this
But
is...
which language do you talk usually? Italian?
British.
British.
And
And you bought it in Italian, so can you read it? No, this is a technical question.
Yes, I'm a translator.
That's good. You're allowed to translate it to English if you want.
I actually get paid, yes.
You will get paid in bullets, not from me, of course. But,
Yeah.
yeah, very dangerous.
But anyway, no, thanks for answering the
No,
question.
I've been not serious in my answer.
No,
Even though I've been,
Expected.
even though I've been. I mean, everything is always its opposite, else it's wrong.
This is correct, because you will discover in the book that there is the stupid CIA and the clever CIA.
In this book,
Yeah, in that book. That has connections with that book also. but there are also the stupid Al-Qaeda and the clever Al-Qaeda. In this book, we try to distinguish by spelling the name of Al-Qaeda slightly differently in different stories by accident. However, the explanation is that these represent the clever Al-Qaeda and the stupid Al-Qaeda. Usually we spell the name CIA the same way to confuse you.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
And for plausible deniability.
Excellent. Good idea.
Yeah, this is also why in the real world, McDonald's is not spelled correctly as it is in this book.
With the edit A between M and C.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
Thank you for confusing me very much. And
I hope I confuse also all the audience, because this is our purpose in life and mission beyond life.
Yes, confusion and illumination.
And a very creative mistake. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Somebody understood about which book he was talking about. I mean, because you and I, or we know, but those don't. But you can go there and buy it so that you cannot understand it yourself. It's in the shop. Question?
Have you ever considered video recording your performances to post them on YouTube?
Oh, we are doing it in that very moment.
Yes, Roberto constantly does this.
I try to do it also when I sleep, but
Yeah.
I'm too lazy to watch it to see if it's real.
The only problem is he does this in Romania, which jumped from a peasant economy to a high technology economy, so the broadband quality is so high, it is impossible to see these videos in Western Europe.
8 years ago, I was paying $1 for 1 megabyte to transfer in Romania. And now when I have uploaded things and I could see them very good in my Romanian broadband, since I've been living in Romania for a while, for the same reason while Bruce Sterling is living in Torino, we don't know. And so actually now I discovered that the broadband in Romania is cheaper and faster than the one in the rest of Europe. Don't ask me why. While McDonald's burgers are more expensive.
Yes, are you planning any further collaborations?
We are already trying to write one story, which is about the invention of money. The problem is that the ideas which we had 6 months ago, 4 months ago, which were surrealistic and crazy, have been applied in the reality by the governments of the world already. We still have one idea which they have not thought about.
It's very, very powerful, and we cannot write it down as we do it, and more unexistent money will be created immediately to delay the collapse of civilization for 5 minutes. Eventually.
Could we have a question in Hungarian, in the original language? Thank you, June.
Hi.
Hi.
What kind of question do you think?
One in Hungarian, then we will answer it. Or Japanese.
Or a mixture of both.
What might talk?
Nem.
Beautiful answer.
We have tried to make this the most pan-European book which has ever been produced. And this is, of course, the spirit of Eurocon and why we come together every year. And finally, Roberto and I, insieme, have consummated the coming together of Fantascienza Europea.
There is also one story in San Marino, actually, featuring 500 rigid Bordeaux.
Mr. Lally.
Yes, this is not a facial hair this time.
I'm sure, no.
The publicity for this book has two sides to it. One is text, but the other side is the young lady in a state of undress.
This is
Yes, I have to ask, how was this young lady paid, and does her husband know?
You think only about money.
This, Mr. Lally, is a secret. We have been asked during this weekend many times for telephone numbers and other information. This is a secret. Only the world of such magnificence as we have produced in broadband, also when it becomes viewable in Western Europe.
Everything can be watched actually on the website belovedbook.com.
Yes, but not yet. Till you simplify.
Well, either you can allow yourself Romanian broadband in this case.
There is a
Har ni
question.
något emot att jag stoppar 1% av intäkterna från boken i egen ficka?
Конечно.
You wouldn't know what that's meant?
What kind of said?
There was another question from Bruce.
Bruce.
That,
No, I just wondered if there were any previous collaborative teams of you.
Well, we don't know.
You know,
This is why we ask.
Grant, Poland, Corn, Milan.
they were
Yeah,
all
but
of the same language,
They all speak
though.
the same language.
So actually the interesting thing is the difficulty of different languages, mother languages, and possibly also a way of thinking given the completely different roots. And vintage.
What do you mean? Dragos, what do you mean?
He just knocked to the door.
You keep talking about those different mother languages. What
Uh-huh.
about your father languages? It may be more similar than
Well, this is interesting psychologically. Which countries have mother languages and which countries have father languages? Probably this explains a lot of history. Yeah, I think Roberto has a mother language. Do you have a mother or a father? No, he has both, because half of him is German and the other half is Italian.
And I have other bits that
Yeah, we-
included meanwhile.
Yeah.
I think that we should slowly
Start to sell books.
Yes, because I think that in 5 minutes we have to be.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a question from.
I will ask into languages. Вы хотели написать книгу вместе с каким-нибудь русским писателем? Do you want to make the book
Это
into...
слишком быстро.
Yes.
Do you want to write the book in collaboration with some writer, Russian writer, probably the next book?
The point is that decisions don't exist. Only things can happen. This means the big difference between deciding to write a book and writing a book in a collaboration is the same difference that you can have between sex and love. This means that sex, you can organize it. Love, you cannot organize it. It happens or it doesn't happen. So either creative resonance happens between two or more people, which is a wonder and miracle of nature, or it doesn't happen. You cannot plan it. If you plan it, you execute a project, it's something else, and probably the results will be less interesting, in my personal view. So you cannot plan it. I wish this will happen. It's not something that happens often, like love, which is something that. So actually, I hope I answered in a way the question.
Yes. I told you he is very romantic.
We don't have books for all, so you will have to fight one against the other to get these books before they get burned by the new inquisition of the politically correct that very soon will make our book outlaw by accusing us of the modern crimes like terrorism or pedophilia or both together.
Political incorrectness is worse. Okay, we should stop now and encourage people to buy copies of the book, which I should explain is slightly more expensive in euros. Perché abbiamo dovuto mandare gli esemplari di Inghilterra che costava molto caro.
Yes, so the actual price is like €15 because
14.
No, it's 15.
Oh yeah, it's 15 today. Okay, yes. I paid.
It was
Oh, but that's cool.
it's special discounts for people who buy many books.
Yes.
Can you pay in sterling?
Sterlina.
In
Yes.
Bradford.
In Bradford.
in 2 weeks in Bradford.
Yes. This is very good. Oh, this is wonderful. Do you want the sign?